Heartbreaking news for Macaulay Culkin. For more than 3 decades, the world has watched Macaulay Culkin grow from the wide-eyed boy who outsmarted burglars in a suburban Chicago house into a man who has quietly survived more loss than most people twice his age. Fans who grew up with him assumed that the hardest chapters of his life were long behind him. But this year, a piece of news reached his fans that had nothing to do with rumors or tabloid gossip. It was real, it was confirmed, and it struck at something deeply personal. Someone who had once played his mother on screen, someone whose face is stitched into the very memory of the film that made him famous, was suddenly gone. Stay with us as we walk through the man behind Kevin McAllister, the family that shaped him, and the loss that has now touched his story in a new and painful way. A childhood built on pressure. Macaulay Culkin was born on August 26, 1980, in New York City, the third of 7 children born to Christopher Kit Culkin and Patricia Brentrup. On paper, his story might look like the story of a lucky kid who stumbled into fame. In reality, it was shaped by financial strain from the very beginning. The Culkin household was large, and the apartment was small, and money was tight enough that his parents' jobs alone could barely keep the family afloat. His father had once pursued acting himself without much success, and by the time young Macaulay began showing an obvious gift for performing, that unfulfilled ambition found a new outlet. While most children his age were focused on recess and cartoons, Macaulay was already training at the School of American Ballet and appearing in off-Broadway productions by the time he was 4 years old. By 8, he had small film roles in Rocket Gibraltar and See You in the Morning, quietly building the kind of resume most adult actors would envy. Directors and casting agents noticed something unusual in him, a natural stillness, an ability to hit his marks and deliver a line without the nervous energy most child actors carry onto a set. That composure became his calling card, and it opened doors quickly. One of those doors led to Uncle Buck in 1989, where 9-year-old Macaulay nearly stole scenes from John Candy with a single deadpan interrogation. Director John Hughes took notice. When Hughes sat down to write a script about a boy accidentally left behind by his family at Christmas, he reportedly had Macaulay in mind from the start. Nobody involved could have predicted what came next. The film that changed everything. Home Alone premiered in November 1990 and became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight, eventually grossing close to $300 million domestically and becoming, for a time, the highest-grossing comedy ever made. Audiences fell for Kevin McAllister instantly, and by extension, they fell for the boy playing him. Macaulay's face appeared on magazine covers, talk shows, and toy packaging. He became one of the most recognizable children on the planet almost overnight. With that fame came a shift in the family dynamic. Every new film offer meant real money, and as the offers piled up, so did the family's dependence on his career. By the mid-1990s, Macaulay was earning several $million a picture, making him one of the highest-paid young actors in Hollywood history. But the money passed through the hands of the adults managing his career, and the pressure of being the family's primary earner as a child took a toll that would not become fully visible until years later. Taking control at 15. In 1995, Kit Culkin and Patricia Brentrup, who had never married, separated and became locked in a bitter dispute over custody of their children and control of Macaulay's earnings. The following year, still a teenager, Macaulay made a decision almost no one his age had ever made. He petitioned a New York court to remove both of his parents as guardians of his estate, asking instead for an independent conservator to oversee his finances. The case was not resolved until 1997, when his father ultimately relinquished control. In interviews given years later, Macaulay described his relationship with his father in blunt terms, characterizing him as controlling and emotionally difficult, and said the two became estranged for years afterward. Loss followed loss in the years after. In 2000, his half-sister Jennifer Adamson died from an accidental overdose. In 2008, his sister Dakota Culkin was struck and killed by a vehicle while crossing a street in Los Angeles. Reports at the time indicated the driver stayed at the scene and that no criminal charges were filed, but the loss of 2 sisters within 8 years left wounds that Macaulay has referenced in interviews for years afterward. Public scrutiny intensified in 2004 when he was arrested during a traffic stop after police reported finding marijuana and prescription medication in his car. He faced misdemeanor charges and was released on bond, but the accompanying mugshots spread across newspapers and cemented a narrative in tabloid media that painted him as a former child star spiraling out of control. By 2012, unflattering paparazzi photos showing him looking notably thin fueled further speculation, some of it wildly exaggerated. Culkin has since pushed back directly on those stories, acknowledging past substance use at points in his life, while firmly denying claims that he was near death, and criticizing how the media turned difficult private moments into public spectacle. The friendship that followed him for life. No relationship in Macaulay Culkin's life drew more scrutiny than his friendship with Michael Jackson. The two reportedly met when Macaulay was still a young stage performer, and their friendship deepened as both navigated the strange, isolating experience of global fame at an early age. Culkin has said repeatedly that part of what bonded them was a shared understanding of what it meant to lose an ordinary childhood to the demands of stardom, and that he never treated Jackson with the reverence most adults did. Visits to Neverland Ranch became a regular part of their friendship, offering Macaulay something rare for a working child star: unstructured time to simply be a kid, away from film sets and expectations. He has spoken openly in later interviews about swimming, playing video games, and riding amusement rides on the property, and has specifically pushed back against sensationalized stories about sleeping in Jackson's bedroom, describing it as a large, multi-room living space rather than an ordinary bedroom. When Jackson faced criminal allegations in 2005, Macaulay testified in court, stating firmly that nothing inappropriate had occurred between them. He has continued defending that friendship publicly in the years since, even his public opinion around Jackson shifted, and he remains godfather to Jackson's children. Building a different kind of life. Rather than chase another Hollywood blockbuster after Home Alone sequel, Macaulay spent years deliberately stepping back. He described wanting an ordinary adolescence, one with school, friends his own age, and time away from cameras, and took a lengthy hiatus from acting in the mid-1990s. When he did return, it was often on his own terms and in far stranger territory than audiences expected, including a stint fronting the novelty band The Pizza Underground. His personal life eventually found steadier ground. After an early marriage to actress Rachel Miner ended, and a long relationship with Mila Kunis came to a close, he met actress Brenda Song on the set of the 2019 film Changeland. The two have since built a family together, welcoming 2 sons, Dakota, named in memory of Macaulay's late sister, and Carson. In interviews, Culkin has spoken about how becoming a father reshaped his understanding of his own childhood, and about his intention to give his sons the kind of steady reassurance he says he didn't always receive growing up. In early 2026, reporting confirmed the couple had become engaged, a milestone they've kept largely private even as fans speculated for months. Professionally, Culkin has continued working steadily rather than chasing the spotlight. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2023, and in late 2025 he and Brenda Song joined the voice cast of Disney's Zootopia 2, playing siblings in the powerful Link-Slay family, with Culkin voicing the eldest son, Cat Trick. Off-camera, the real-life couple has spoken about how strange and funny it felt to voice brother and sister on screen while raising 2 children together at home. In January 2026, Culkin made an emotional return to the Golden Globes for the first time in 35 years, presenting an award to warm applause and joking with the crowd about reappearing outside the holiday season that made him famous. A new kind of heartbreak. That is the context that makes the news from earlier this year land so hard. On January 30th, 2026, Catherine O'Hara, who played Kevin McAllister's frantic, loving mother in the first 2 Home Alone films, died at her home in Los Angeles at the age of 71. Her death was later confirmed to have resulted from a pulmonary embolism, with rectal cancer identified as the underlying cause. Tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry, honoring a career that spanned 6 decades, from her early years on SCTV to her Emmy-winning role in Schitt's Creek and her recent work in the studio. For audiences, Catherine O'Hara will always be tied to a single, unforgettable image, a mother realizing in horror, mid-flight to Paris, that she has left her son behind. For Macaulay Culkin, she was the woman who spent weeks on set treating him like her own child, the actress whose panicked, tearful reunion with him at the end of the film became one of the most quoted moments in holiday movie history. Her passing does not just mark the loss of a beloved performer. It quietly closes another chapter of the story that made Macaulay Culkin who he is, a reminder that even the most joyful memories of childhood are eventually touched by loss. A life still being written. What makes Macaulay Culkin's story worth revisiting isn't simply that he survived fame, financial exploitation, family estrangement, and repeated public scrutiny. It's that he has spent the last decade quietly building something steadier, a partnership, 2 young sons who watch Home Alone without yet realizing their own father is the boy on screen, and a career he now approaches on his own terms rather than anyone else's. He has said he considers himself perpetually retired, taking on projects only when something genuinely interests him, a philosophy that would have been unthinkable for the exhausted, overworked child actor of the early 1990s. The loss of Catherine O'Hara adds a new layer of grief to a life that has already carried more of it than most. But if Macaulay Culkin's history shows anything, it's a persistent instinct to keep moving forward without erasing what came before, to honor the people and the pain that shaped him while still building something warmer for the family he has now. As one more piece of his childhood quietly slips into the past, the question for those who grew up watching him isn't whether he'll keep going. It's what kind of story he chooses to tell next. If this look back at Macaulay Culkin's life moved you, let us know your favorite memory of him in the comments, and subscribe for more of the stories behind the faces that shaped your childhood.